Hello students, welcome to Sanskrit tutorials. So in my previous video, I have discussed with you the polynomial chapter. In that we have discussed the zero of the polynomial and also the factor theorem we have discussed. In today's video, we will discuss about the quadrilateral chapter. So in the quadrilateral chapter, we have two exercises. In the first exercise, we will get around 7 theorems. So we should study those 7 theorems and one exercise we have. After that we have the second exercise based on the midpoint theorem. So in the second exercise, midpoint theorem, converse of the midpoint theorem, we have 2 theorems there. So in total in this chapter we have 9 theorems. We will study one by one. Okay. So the first theorem statement is, that is theorem 8.1. okay. The diagonal of a quadrilateral, divides it into two congruent triangles. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಚತುರ್ಭುಜದ ವಿಕರ್ಣವು ಆ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜವನ್ನು ಎರಡು ಸಮರೂಪ ತ್ರಿಭುಜಗಳಾಗಿ ವಿಭಜಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಅ ಕ್ವಾಡ್ರಿಲ್ಯಾಟರಲ್ ಆರ್ what are the quadrilateral like this parallelogram. So this is the diagonal, okay, A B C D. Here A B C and ADC are two triangles formed by the diagonal AC of the quadrilateral ABCD. So we need to show that this AC is dividing the quadrilateral ABCD into two congruent triangles. Those are triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ADC. Okay, so this is the statement of the first theorem. So we will study the second theorem also. So theorem number 8.2. okay, the theorem number 8.2, in a parallelogram, ಒಂದು ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಒಂದು ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಸಮರೂಪ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜ, ಹೌದಾ? ಇನ್ ಅ ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ದ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್. ಓಕೆ, ಇದೇ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ನ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ಒಂದು ಸಮರೂಪ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಭಿಮುಖ ಬಾಹುಗಳು ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಸಮನಾಗಿರ್ತವೆ. ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಇನ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್, ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಐತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಓಕೆ, ಇಫ್ ವಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ that is A B C D, here the opposite sides are equal. ಇಲ್ಲಿ opposite sides equal ಇರ್ತವೆ. that is AB, okay, AB equal to CD and also AD equal to BC. So this is the statement of the second theorem. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ theorem ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ? the diagonal of the quadrilateral divides it into two congruent triangles. ಮತ್ತೆ in the second theorem is, in the parallelogram the opposite sides are always equal. If you consider any parallelogram, the opposite sides are always equal. Okay, so this is the statement of the second theorem. So we have seen the second theorem. Now we will discuss about theorem number 3. okay, total 7 theorem we have. In that, the third theorem, theorem number 8.3. so students, we saw that in theorem number 8.2, what we saw, if it is a parallelogram, if a quadrilateral is parallelogram, then the opposite sides are equal. Then what about the converse of it? That is, if the opposite sides of any quadrilateral, okay, if the opposite sides of any quadrilateral are equal, then it is a parallelogram. So what is statement of 8.2? If it is a parallelogram, then the opposite sides are equal. But 8.3 states that if, okay, if the opposite sides of a quadrilateral, any quadrilateral maybe I will take the quadrilateral as like this, or it may be like this. Okay, if the opposite sides are equal, then it is 100% a parallelogram. So if we have considered the parallelogram, we have only three special type of parallelograms. Those are the square, rectangle, and the rhombus. Okay, so this is the theorem statement. Over to the 8.3. 8.3 ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಚತುರ್ಭುಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಭಿಮುಖ ಬಾಹುಗಳೇನಾದರೂ ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಸಮನಾಗಿದ್ವು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜವು ಸಮರೂಪ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜನ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, this is the statement of 8.3. now theorem 8.4 ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, okay, the theorem 8.4 states that, see, first 8.2 we saw about the sides. Now we will discuss about the angles in a parallelogram. In a parallelogram, the opposite angles are equal. The opposite angles are equal. Same 8.2 what we studied. 8.2, that is the in the parallelogram the opposite sides are equal. Here we will discuss about the angles, that in a parallelogram the opposite angles are equal. That means if there is a parallelogram like this, P, Q, R, S. Okay, parallelogram like this it is. Then here angle P is equals to angle R and angle Q is equals to angle S. This is the statement of the theorem number 8.4. So again we have theorem, okay, we have theorem 8.5. okay, theorem number 8.5, what it tells means, again the converse of 8.4. as we saw the 8.3 is converse of 8.2, so this is also the converse of 8.4. that is, if the opposite angles of a quadrilateral, if the opposite angles of the quadrilateral are equal. Okay students, see here, if the opposite angles of the quadrilateral are equal, then it is a parallelogram. So here what we can see here, the converse of the statement 8.4 and the theorem number 8.5 states that if the opposite angles of a quadrilateral, okay, there is a here we took that this is already we have took that this is a parallelogram, but here we are taking randomly a quadrilateral. We are not stating that it is whether the parallelogram or square or rectangle or rhombus. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ theorem 8 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಏನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿವಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. ಇದು ಪ್ಯಾರಲೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಇರ್ತಾವ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ ನಾನು, ಹೌದಾ? ಆದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 8.5 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಂಗಲ್ಲ. ನಮ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಹೈಪೋಥೆಸಿಸ್ ಏನು, ನಮ್ದು ಅಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಏನು, ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದಾವೆ. ಓಕೆ, MNLP ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಹಿಯರ್ ನಂದು ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಅದಾವು. ಇಫ್ angle M equal to angle L and angle N equal to angle P, then MLNP, sorry, MNLP is a parallelogram, So this is the statement of a theorem number 8.4. This is the meaning of the theorem statement 8.5. So now we have discussed up to theorem number 8.5, that is we have discussed 8 in the out of 7 theorems we have discussed now 5. So remaining 2 we will discuss now, that is the theorem number 8.6. Theorem 8.6, the statement of theorem 8.6 means the diagonals, this is based on the diagonals, of the parallelogram, the diagonals of the parallelogram bisect each other. The diagonals of the parallelogram bisect each other. ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಏನು ಇದ್ರದ್ದು? ಹೌದಾ, ಒಂದು ಸಮರೂಪ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ವಿಕರ್ಣಗಳು ಒಂದನ್ನೊಂದು ಸಮನಾಗಿ ಭಾಗ ಮಾಡುತ್ತವೆ. ಹೌದಾ, ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಭಜಿಸುತ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ let this a parallelogram, let this a parallelogram A, B, C, D. Here AC is one diagonal and this BD is another diagonal. Here what they will tell us, AO equal to CO or BO equal to DO. That is the diagonals bisect each other. ಹೌದಾ, ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಟ್ ಆಗ್ತವೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ನಲ್ಸ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ AO equal to BO and BO equal to DO. This is the statement of the theorem number 8.6. See, theorem number 8.1 what it tells about the two triangles, and 8.2 and 8.3 discusses about the sides of the quadrilateral. 8.4 and 8.5 discusses about the angles of the quadrilateral or the parallelogram. So 8.6 is discussing about the diagonals of the parallelogram. So same thing as we have seen the converse of 8.2, the converse of 8.4 we have seen. So now the converse of theorem 8.6, that is theorem number 8.7 is, theorem number 8.7 is, if the diagonals of quadrilateral, if the diagonals of quadrilateral are bisects, diagonals of the quadrilateral bisects, then it is a parallelogram. Then it is a parallelogram. The reverse case here we are taking that, see directly I have taken that ABCD is a parallelogram. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ABCD ಅನ್ನೋದೊಂದು ಸಮರೂಪ ಚತುರ್ಭುಜ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡೇನಿ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಡಯಾಗ್ನಲ್ಸ್ ಬೈಸೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿನಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ನಲ್ಸ್ ಒಂದು ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಚತುರ್ಭುಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ನಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದರೂ ಬೈಸೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಹೌದಾ, ಇನ್ ಎನಿ ಕ್ವಾಡ್ರಿಲ್ಯಾಟರಲ್, ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಎನಿ ಕ್ವಾಡ್ರಿಲ್ಯಾಟರಲ್, ಓಕೆ, ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಎನಿ ಕ್ವಾಡ್ರಿಲ್ಯಾಟರಲ್, if the diagonals are bisecting, here I'll take this as a PQRS. If so, this let this consider it is intersecting at point O. If PO equal to RO and QO equal to SO, if PO equal to RO and QO equal to SO, then 100%, then PQRS is a parallelogram. PQRS is a parallelogram. So this is about the all 7 statements of this the chapter quadrilaterals. So theorem number 8.1, once again we will revise all the theorem statements. That is, theorem 8.1 states that the diagonal of a quadrilateral divides the quadrilateral into two congruent triangles. And 8.2 states that in a parallelogram the opposite sides are equal. 8.3 states that theorem number 8.3 states that if in a quadrilateral the opposite sides are equal, then it is a parallelogram. Similarly, 8.4 states that in a parallelogram the opposite angles are equal. Theorem 8.5 states that if the opposite angles of a quadrilateral are equal, then it is a parallelogram. And now 8.6 states that the diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. So the converse of this statement 8.7 is that if the diagonals of a quadrilateral bisect each other, then the quadrilateral is called as parallelogram. So this is about this video. So please like, share and subscribe our channel. Thank you.